The thing about alien technology is, it's probably smarter than you. That's not a comforting thought when you're floating in a tin can masquerading as a spacecraft, navigating the relentless debris fields of Saturn's rings. But here we are. Dr. Talia Voss, the most brilliant nanotech scientist this side of the Milky Way, and her ragtag team of half-sane experts. Talia glanced at the data stream on her wrist console, which was furiously blinking with alerts that might as well have said, "This is why you shouldn't touch alien stuff." "All right. Listen up everyone," she shouted over the droning hum of the ship's engines. "We've got a new toy, and by toy, I mean probably the last thing we'll ever see." Arkin Strand, linguist and resident pessimist, gave her a lazy salute. "You know, I'd feel more confident if our mission briefing hadn't consisted of, 'Don't die.'" "Mission briefings are overrated," Talia replied, brushing her unruly hair from her eyes. "Besides, we're scientists. We live for the thrill of not knowing what's going to kill us next." Juno Kale, the ship's engineer, was busy tinkering with a panel that sparked more than a rebellious teenager. "If this alien tech isn't going to fry our brains, then I'm guessing the ship will," she muttered, her hands deftly maneuvering a spanner that looked like it had seen better centuries. The ship's navigator, a reprogrammed AI named Grumble, chimed in from the overhead speakers. "I calculate a 78% chance that whatever you find in that temple will try to murder you." "Thanks, Grumble," Talia said, rolling her eyes. "Your optimism is infectious." The alien temple, if you could call a massive hunk of space rock a temple, loomed menacingly in front of them, nestled among the swirling chaos of Saturn's rings. It looked like it had been designed by someone who had a grudge against straight lines and right angles. "So," Arkin said, squinting at the structure through the viewport, "who do you think these aliens were? Space architects on drugs?" Talia shrugged. "Maybe they were just really into abstract art. Or maybe they just like messing with the heads of future explorers. Either way, we're here to poke it with a very long stick and hope it doesn't poke back." Juno snorted. "Great, we've traveled millions of miles to become interstellar graffiti artists. And proud of it," Talia shot back, her voice drenched in sarcasm. "Let's get suited up. We've got a date with destiny, or at least with something that looks like a particularly angry pile of rocks." The airlock hissed open, and the trio stepped into their suits, the thick exoskeletons clanking like ancient armor. Talia couldn't help but think they looked like a trio of walking tin cans ready to be recycled. She took a deep breath, the metallic tang of the suit's recycled air filling her lungs. Stepping onto the alien structure, Talia's boots crunched on dust that hadn't been disturbed for millennia. "Ah, the sweet smell of ancient alien despair," she quipped as she adjusted her helmet's visor to block out the blinding reflection from the planet's rings. "More like the smell of impending doom," Arkin muttered, activating his translation gear that would hopefully make sense of the alien inscriptions littering the structure's walls. Juno tapped at a wrist console, deploying a swarm of nanobots to map the interior. "You ever wonder if we're the baddies in some alien history book? If we are, I hope they're at least giving us a good villain monologue," Talia replied, grinning like a cat in zero gravity. The interior of the temple was spacious enough to house a couple of elephants, or whatever the alien equivalent was, and was lit by a faint, pulsating glow emanating from the walls. The translation gear in Arkin's helmet started to whir, projecting glyphs across his visor. "According to this," Arkin said, "the aliens were into some serious nanotech advancements. Or they were just really into DIY bioengineering." Talia's eyes lit up with the kind of excitement usually reserved for kids in candy stores or scientists discovering a new way to blow things up. "This is it," she said breathlessly. "The holy grail of nanotechnology. If we can replicate this, we'll probably be able to create weapons that are borderline war crimes," Juno finished for her. Talia laughed. "Or, cure diseases, save lives. But hey, let's focus on the mass destruction, because that's what sells." The trio moved deeper into the structure, their footsteps echoing ominously. The air was thick with the promise of discovery or disaster, as Grumble would likely put it. "I can't shake the feeling that we're not alone here," Arkin said, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting an alien to tap him and ask for directions. "Probably just your paranoia," Juno replied, though her voice held an edge of concern. Talia stopped, peering at a central console that hummed with energy. "Whatever it is," she said, "it's definitely awake." Juno's eyes narrowed as she scrutinized the alien symbols. You think it's friendly? Only one way to find out, Talia said, reaching for the console controls. Let's give it a nudge and see if it bites. The console lights shifted, casting a ghostly glow over the room. Talia's wrist console beeped erratically, interpreting the alien data. Okay. According to this, we've activated some kind of welcome protocol? Or, Arkin interjected, we've just launched a countdown to our doom. Ever the optimist, Talia replied dryly. A holographic projection flickered to life, depicting an alien figure that looked remarkably like a cross between a praying mantis and a Swiss army knife. It chattered in a language that the translator struggled to keep up with. Welcome, interlopers, the projection finally stated, its voice sounding like it had gargled a handful of nails. You have accessed the repository of the Aeternum Collective. Aeternum Collective, Juno repeated. Sounds like a band from the 23rd century. Fitting, Talia mused, because we're about to rock their world. The alien continued, this technology is the culmination of eons of research. It is capable of altering biological and mechanical entities at a molecular level. In other words, it's going to make us obsolete, Arkin said, his voice dripping with irony. Talia nodded. If we don't blow ourselves up first. The alien hologram flickered, its message coming to a close. Use this power wisely, or suffer the consequences. And there it is, Juno said, raising an eyebrow. The obligatory ominous warning. Talia dismissed the hologram and turned to her team. We need to get this back to the ship. If we can control this nanotech, it could change everything. Or, Arkin added, we'll just end up as a cautionary tale for the next bunch of idiots who find this place. Always a pleasure working with you, Arkin, Talia said with a smirk. Let's get moving. We've got history to rewrite, or ruin. As they made their way back to their ship, the alien temple seemed to watch them, its ancient nanotech humming with potential and menace. It was a reminder that no matter how advanced humanity became, there was always something bigger, smarter, and more likely to kill you lurking out there in the cosmos. But for now, they had a prize, and Talia had a feeling this was just the beginning of something far more dangerous than she could imagine. Arkin glanced back at the temple as they boarded their ship. You think we'll live long enough to regret this? Talia grinned, the thrill of discovery still fresh in her eyes. I hope not. Where's the fun in that? Juno punched the ship's launch sequence, and the vessel groaned to life. Next stop, a lab far enough away from civilization to test this without blowing up anything important. Or anyone important, Arkin corrected. As they ascended, the alien temple shrank into the vastness of Saturn's rings, a silent witness to humanity's reckless curiosity. Talia leaned back in her seat, her mind racing with possibilities and threats. Grumble, ever the voice of reason, chimed in. I calculate a 95% probability that this will end poorly. Talia chuckled, a sound that echoed through the cabin. Well, at least we'll be remembered. And as the ship surged forward, leaving behind the ancient alien relic and propelling them toward an uncertain future, one thing was clear. They were either the saviors or the harbingers of humanity's downfall. Either way, it was bound to be one hell of a ride. Talia stared at the alien tech in disbelief. The thing was glowing like a radioactive Christmas tree and humming with a frequency that could probably shatter glass or at least annoy anyone within a 50-mile radius. So, anyone else feel like they just opened Pandora's box? She asked, trying to mask the tremor in her voice with a healthy dose of sarcasm. Arkin peered over her shoulder, eyebrows raised so high they nearly met his hairline. Pandora's box? More like Pandora's entire warehouse. This thing's got more bells and whistles than an overachieving Space Academy graduate. Juno, ever the practical one, tapped her wrist console to record the activity. If it starts singing, Happy Birthday, I'm out, she muttered, fiddling with the settings to ensure they didn't accidentally fry themselves. I didn't sign up for a concert. Grumble's voice crackled over the intercom, his tone snarky as ever. I suggest caution. The probability of catastrophic failure is remarkably high. Thanks, Grumble. As if my life wasn't already one giant cautionary tale, Talia replied, scanning the alien glyphs that danced across her visor. According to this, we've activated a nanotech integration protocol? Which means, Arkin prompted, leaning closer and squinting at the alien symbols with all the enthusiasm of someone reading a phone book. Which means, Talia continued, it's trying to blend with our tech. Kind of like a really awkward first date between species. Or an interspecies Tinder match, Juno quipped. Swipe right for disaster. Talia snorted. Well, I always did have a thing for bad ideas. Before anyone could make another snide remark, the console emitted a sharp beep. Their nanotech devices, wrist consoles, the ship's systems, even Grumble, were interfacing with the alien tech, their displays flickering like a bad sci-fi movie. Talia, Arkin said, a hint of genuine concern threading through his usual sarcasm. Are these things supposed to be doing that? No, Talia admitted, biting her lip as she frantically tapped at her wrist console. No, they are not. The ship's lights flickered ominously, casting long shadows that seemed to mock their every move. The alien tech pulsed, its glow intensifying as if taunting them with its power. Juno's wrist console beeped, spewing out data at a dizzying rate. Well, at least it's not boring, she said, her fingers dancing over the controls with practiced ease. But I'm starting to think boring wasn't so bad after all. Grumble's voice held a note of barely suppressed panic. The ship's systems are reporting anomalies. I strongly recommend immediate disengagement. Thank you, Captain Obvious, Talia muttered, though she was already working to sever the connection. But if we pull the plug too fast, we might blow ourselves up. Arkin threw his hands up in mock surrender. Great, so we're screwed in slow motion instead of fast forward. Talia spared him a wry smile. Welcome to my life. After what felt like an eternity, the alien tech's glow subsided to a more manageable level, the wrist consoles slowing their data output to something less seizure-inducing. Talia exhaled slowly, relief washing over her like a cold shower. Okay, crisis temporarily averted, she said, glancing at her companions. Now let's figure out what this thing actually does before it decides to wipe us from existence. Arkin scratched his chin thoughtfully. I vote we start with not touching anything else. Juno nodded, seconded. I'm all for curiosity, but I'd rather not explode today. Agreed, Talia said, but look at this. It's solving complex algorithms in seconds. If we can harness this, it could revolutionize everything. Or destroy it, Arkin added, ever the realist. Semantics, Talia replied with a grin. Now, let's see if we can control it without triggering the next apocalypse. The trio dug into the data, their eyes glued to the streams of information that flowed across their screens. The alien tech's capabilities were astounding, solving problems that would take top human minds decades to crack with ease. Juno whistled low under her breath. This thing's smarter than a neural net on steroids. Yeah, but can it make a decent cup of coffee? Arkin quipped, trying to sound nonchalant even as his eyes widened at the possibilities unfurling before them. If it can, I'm proposing, Talia joked, though she couldn't help but marvel at the sheer potential in their hands. With this, we could end disease, eradicate hunger, maybe even solve climate change. Or, Arkin said, his tone turning serious, we could accidentally cause a black hole and end up as space debris. Talia shot him a look. Always with the dark side, huh? Someone's gotta keep things grounded, Arkin replied with a shrug. Besides, I've read enough sci-fi to know how these things usually end. Let's just hope life doesn't imitate art, Juno said, though her lips quirked in a faint smile. Their banter was cut short by a sudden power surge that sent sparks flying from the ship's control panel. Alarms blared, echoing through the cramped quarters of their vessel. Guys, I think we have a problem, Juno said, her fingers flying across the controls as she tried to stabilize the systems. A big one. Talia cursed under her breath, glancing at the alien tech that pulsed with renewed intensity. Grumble, what's happening? The integration is causing an overload, Grumble replied, his voice crisp with urgency. I strongly suggest immediate intervention. Really? I thought we could just sit back and enjoy the light show, Arkin snapped, though his fingers were already working to isolate the surge. Talia gritted her teeth, her mind racing. They were teetering on the edge of a disaster, and she was all too aware that one wrong move could spell their doom. Okay, everyone focus, she said, her voice calm despite the chaos. Juno, reroute the power flow. Arkin, see if you can stabilize the interface. And you? Arkin asked, shooting her a quick glance. I'm going to try and talk this thing down before it decides to go nuclear on us, Talia replied, her hands moving over the controls with the precision of a surgeon. Wish me luck. Luck's for rookies, Juno muttered, though her voice held a hint of affection. "You've got this." With each passing second, the situation teetered closer to disaster. But slowly, surely, they began to regain control. The power levels stabilized, the alarms ceased their wailing, and the threat of fiery destruction faded to a distant memory. "Well," Arkin said, leaning back with a sigh of relief, "that was fun." Talia laughed, the sound tinged with equal parts relief and exhaustion. "Let's not do that again anytime soon." Juno wiped a hand across her brow, her expression a mixture of disbelief and exhilaration. "I think I need a drink." "Make it two," Talia agreed, though she couldn't shake the feeling that their adventure was just beginning. Grumble's voice broke the silence, his tone wry. "I calculate a 52% probability that this will end in catastrophe." Talia smirked, glancing at the alien tech that had nearly spelled their doom. "Yeah, but isn't that what makes it exciting?" As the ship continued its journey through the stars, the alien tech humming quietly in the background, Talia couldn't help but wonder what other secrets it held. She knew the path ahead was fraught with danger, but that was a risk she was willing to take. After all, what was the point of living in a universe full of mysteries if you didn't have the guts to unravel them? "What's our next move?" Arkin asked, interrupting her thoughts. Talia considered for a moment, her mind racing with possibilities. "We analyze what we have, see if we can control it without blowing ourselves up." "And if we can't?" Juno asked, though the gleam in her eyes suggested she already knew the answer. "Then we improvise," Talia replied with a grin. "But first, let's celebrate surviving the first test. Drinks are on me." "You're paying?" "Must be my lucky day," Arkin quipped. "Don't get used to it," Talia shot back, though her smile belied the seriousness of her words. As they settled back into the rhythm of space travel, the ship's engines humming a familiar tune, Talia knew they were on the edge of something extraordinary. Whether it would lead to salvation or destruction, she couldn't say. But she was ready to find out. Because in a universe full of uncertainty, one thing was for sure: the adventure had only just begun. The ship drifted through the labyrinthine chaos of Saturn's rings, its tin can hull doing its best impression of a peaceful cruise liner. Inside, however, the crew was anything but peaceful. "Anyone else feel like we're sitting on a ticking time bomb?" Juno asked, staring at the wrist console that had recently attempted a light show worthy of a rock concert gone wrong. "More like a bomb that thinks it's a Rubik's Cube," Talia replied, eyes glued to the alien tech now safely ensconced in a containment field. "It's solving equations faster than a caffeine-fueled mathematician on a deadline." "Yeah, well, let's hope it's not planning to solve us out of existence," Arkin added, peering cautiously at the device as if it might lash out at any moment. "Or start breeding. Because, that's exactly what we need, nanotech babies running amok." "Just what the universe ordered," Juno said dryly. "An army of self-replicating, glowing toddlers with an IQ to put Einstein to shame." Talia chuckled, though the underlying unease in her stomach was as hard to shake as a stubborn stain. "We should focus on understanding it before it starts understanding us." "Speak for yourself," Arkin muttered. "I prefer my technology slightly less sentient and far more obedient." Juno tapped away at her console, monitoring the alien tech's activity. "Hey, Talia, it looks like it's integrating deeper into our systems." "Great," Talia sighed, the nanotech equivalent of redecorating without asking first. "Yeah, and it's not even our house," Arkin said with a sardonic grin. "Just wait till the landlord finds out." Speaking of which, Juno interrupted, her voice tinged with the kind of dread one usually reserves for tax audits. "Earth's getting antsy. There's chatter from the brass back home. They want an update, like, yesterday." "Of course they do," Talia groaned, running a hand through her hair. "Nothing like a little political pressure to go with our impending mechanical doom." Arkin raised an eyebrow. "What's the latest from our benevolent overlords?" Juno accessed the incoming messages, her lips twitching as she read. "Let's see. Secure the technology, ensure its potential is maximized, blah, blah. Ah, here we go. Failure to comply will result in termination of mission privileges." Talia snorted. "Mission privileges? What are those, exactly?" "The right not to get vaporized by alien tech?" "Yeah, well, they left that part out," Juno said. "Typical bureaucratic oversight. Don't you just love a good old-fashioned threat?" Arkin chimed in. "Really puts you in the mood to cooperate." Talia shook her head, her gaze drifting back to the humming device. We need to be smart about this. Earth wants control, but if this tech's as powerful as it seems, handing it over might be the last thing we do. Assuming it doesn't assimilate Earth first, Arkin added helpfully. Let's not give it any ideas, Juno replied, though her fingers continued to dance over the console. I've managed to quarantine most of its integration attempts, but it's like trying to hold back a tidal wave with a teacup. Then we need a bigger teacup, Talia said, her mind racing through possibilities. If it keeps integrating, it could start making decisions for us. Decisions like, oops, I accidentally the whole planet, Arkin suggested, his tone only half joking. Exactly, Talia said, a touch of grim determination in her voice. And while I appreciate a good existential crisis, I'd rather not live it. Juno sighed, glancing at her wrist console. Well, we can't just keep playing catch-up. We need a plan. Talia nodded, her expression serious. We need to find a way to communicate with it. Understand its motives, if it even has those. Great, Arkin said. Anyone know how to say, please don't annihilate us in alien tech speak? Maybe start with, hello, and work our way up, Juno suggested, a ghost of a smile on her lips. Always good to be polite. Politeness never hurt anyone, Talia agreed. Except when it did, but let's not focus on that. Grumble's voice piped up, as if sensing their collective anxiety. I feel compelled to remind you of the high probability of failure. Thanks, Grumble, Talia replied. It's nice to know you have faith in us. Faith is irrelevant, Grumble retorted. Probability is not. Right, Arkin said, because when the chips are down, you can always count on cold hard numbers. We've got a chance, Talia stated, more to herself than anyone else. And that's more than we had before. With a plan. A tentative one, at least, they worked tirelessly to develop a method of communication. It was tedious, nerve-wracking, and fraught with the potential for catastrophic failure. But slowly, piece by piece, they began to see a pattern, a way to interface with the tech that wouldn't result in their untimely demise. Looks like we might have an in, Juno said, staring at the console with a mix of disbelief and triumph. Here's hoping it doesn't bite back, Talia replied, though her eyes held a glimmer of hope. Arkin, ever the pessimist, crossed his arms. Just remember, if it starts asking for our banking information, we run. Noted, Talia said with a chuckle. Let's see what this thing has to say for itself. As they initiated the interface, a hush fell over the group. The alien tech pulsed gently, as if acknowledging their presence. Lights flickered in a pattern that seemed almost conversational. Well, that's different, Juno said, her voice barely a whisper. At least it's not shouting, Arkin pointed out. Small victories. Talia leaned in closer, her mind racing with possibilities. Let's try to decipher this. Working together, they painstakingly translated the patterns, each discovery a tiny breakthrough in the language of alien tech. It was slow, frustrating work, but the promise of understanding drove them on. Hours passed like minutes, the ship's hum a constant reminder of their precarious situation. But gradually, a sense of clarity began to emerge from the chaos. Hey, Juno said, her voice tinged with excitement. I think it's responding. Look, sure enough, the patterns had shifted, forming recognizably structured sequences. It was communication, in its most basic form. Now we're getting somewhere, Talia said, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Anyone else feel like they're on the world's most dangerous first date? Arkin quipped, his eyes glued to the screen. Yeah, Juno replied, and I forgot to bring flowers. Let's see if it likes small talk, Talia suggested. Or if it jumps straight to the awkward silence. Taking a deep breath, she sent a series of simple queries, probing for information without provoking their enigmatic guest. The response, when it came, was both surprising and unsettling. It thinks we're pests, Talia said, her expression a mixture of amusement and disbelief. Like gnats buzzing around its head. Charming, Arkin deadpanned. Nothing like being insulted by a glorified calculator. At least it acknowledged this, Juno pointed out, her eyes bright with the thrill of discovery. That's something. Yeah, Talia agreed, though her mind was already racing with possibilities. Now we just need to figure out what it wants. And how to convince it we won't mess everything up, Arkin added. Or how to convince it we don't deserve to be squashed, Juno said. Talia nodded, her gaze fixed on the pulsing patterns before her. Maybe we can show it that we're more than pests. That there's value in keeping us around. Good luck with that, Arkin muttered. I'm not sure I even believe that half the time. Well, let's fake it till we make it, Talia said with a wry smile. We've got a chance to do something extraordinary here. And potentially catastrophic, Juno reminded her. That too, Talia conceded. But we'll never know unless we try. As they continued their tentative dance with the alien tech, each new insight brought them closer to understanding its purpose and its potential. But as the ship drifted through the endless expanse of space, a new message arrived from Earth, its tone as cold and unforgiving as the vacuum outside their hull. Looks like they're getting impatient, Juno said, reading the terse missive. They want results, and they want them now. Of course they do, Arkin sighed. As if we don't have enough to worry about. Talia shook her head, a determined glint in her eye. Let them wait. We're on the brink of something incredible. We can't let politics or pressure derail us now. And so, with the weight of the universe pressing down on them, they pushed forward, determined to uncover the secrets of the alien tech, and to prove that humanity was worth keeping around. So, how's everyone's favorite alien gremlin doing? Arkin asked, strolling into the cramped command center like he'd just stumbled in from a lazy Sunday brunch, rather than the constant nightmare that had become their reality. Still trying to redecorate the ship's mainframe with its own unique brand of chaos? Gremlin's putting it mildly, Talia replied, not looking up from the console where lines of alien script danced like a caffeinated spider weaving its web. More like a toddler who just discovered finger paints and decided to express itself all over the Sistine Chapel. Juno was hunched over her station, fingers flying in a desperate attempt to keep up with the tech's latest antics. Yeah, except this toddler could potentially collapse the ship's internal infrastructure if it throws a tantrum. Arkin leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. Nothing says, fun, quite like watching our doom unfold pixel by pixel. What's the latest? It's starting to talk back, Juno said, her voice a mix of awe and dread. Not just mimicry, either. Actual responses. Great, Arkin replied. Now it can insult us in real time. Can't wait for my self-esteem to take a nosedive. Talia frowned at the screen, the glow casting eerie shadows across her face. It's more than that, it seems to be. Testing us. Arkin snorted. Testing us? What is this, an interstellar pop quiz? I didn't study for How Not to Die in Space 101. Yeah, well, Juno grumbled, neither did it. I'm still not entirely sure if it's actively hostile or just really, really curious. Curiosity killed the cat, Arkin said, looking entirely too pleased with himself. And probably the crew of the SS Hopeless Endeavor as well. Their banter was interrupted by Grumble's voice crackling through the intercom like a disapproving parent. Probability of catastrophic failure increasing. Suggest immediate intervention or evacuation. Thanks, Grumble, Talia shot back. Always a comfort to know you're rooting for us. Probability does not equate to rooting, Grumble replied, its tone as dry as a Martian desert. Merely an observation. Yeah, well, stick your observation in a black hole, Arkin muttered, earning a half-hearted chuckle from Juno. Talia ignored them, focusing on the console. We need to figure out what it's doing, and fast. If it's testing us, there has to be some way to show it we're not a bunch of bumbling idiots. Speak for yourself, Arkin said. Bumbling is my default setting. Look, Juno intervened, it seems to be targeting specific systems, life support, navigation, even the coffee maker. It's like it's probing, trying to understand what everything does. I'd argue that the coffee maker is the most essential of those systems, Arkin quipped, though the humor did little to mask his growing concern. Talia shot him a look. If it controls life support, we're in deep trouble. We need to get ahead of it. Maybe we can convince it that cooperation is beneficial. Or at least that we're not worth the effort to annihilate, Juno added, her fingers a blur on the keyboard. Arkin raised an eyebrow. And how do you plan to do that? Offer it a fruit basket? Humor might be our best weapon, Talia suggested, a wry smile tugging at her lips. If it thinks we're amusing, it might keep us around. So we're playing court jester for an alien overlord, Arkin said. Good to know my sense of humor might finally save my life. Start thinking of your best jokes, Juno said, her voice tight with focus. If this goes south, we'll need all the charm we can muster. They were still brainstorming when the lights flickered ominously, and the temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Is it just me, or did it suddenly become the inside of a freezer? Arkin asked, rubbing his arms. Temperature controls gone haywire, Juno confirmed, her brow furrowing. It's definitely interacting with the environment. Fantastic, Talia muttered. Anyone bring marshmallows? Because this is shaping up to be the worst camping trip ever. They huddled together, pooling their collective brainpower in the hope of crafting a response that wouldn't lead to their immediate demise. Outside, the stars glared down, indifferent to their struggles. Okay, let's try this, Talia said, typing furiously. We show it the benefits of collaboration over domination. Make it see we're useful. Like free labor, Arkin pointed out. Industrious little ants. Exactly, Juno said, nodding. Except let's leave out the ant analogy when we present it. Talia hit enter, sending their carefully crafted message into the ether, hoping it didn't result in the ship's immediate disassembly. For a moment, nothing happened, the silence buzzing with anticipation. Then, slowly, the lights flickered back to normal and the temperature stabilized. Well, it hasn't decided to turn us into popsicles yet, Juno said with a sigh of relief. That's a start. Arkin raised a finger. Or it could just be lulling us into a false sense of security before it crushes us. Always the optimist, Talia chided gently. Grumble's voice crackled over the intercom again, the words a grim reminder of their precarious existence. Probability of catastrophic failure remains significant. Never change, Grumble, Arkin said, shaking his head. Juno gestured at the console. Look, it's responding. The patterns change. I think it's starting to see us as the cockroach infestation it can't quite get rid of. Arkin suggested. Not quite that bad, Talia said, but maybe something closer to an unexpected ally. Ally, Arkin repeated, as if the word tasted strange in his mouth. That's a leap. One we don't have a choice but to make, Juno said. If we can guide it, steer its curiosity towards something productive, we might just come out of this in one piece. Or at least fewer pieces than we'd otherwise be in, Arkin added. Their momentary relief was cut short by Grumble's announcement. Incoming communication from Earth. Priority message. Oh, joy, Talia sighed, pulling up the message. Let's see what the bureaucrats have to say this time. Arkin leaned in, reading over her shoulder. Probably another cheerful memo about how we're all expendable in the name of progress. Pretty close, Juno said, scanning the message. They want results. And they want them yesterday. No pressure. Results, they say, as if we've been sitting around knitting sweaters and sipping tea, Talia scoffed. They have no idea what we're dealing with. To be fair, neither do we, Arkin pointed out. But at least we have front row seats to the chaos. Talia rolled her eyes. The kind of chaos that turns into a catastrophe if we're not careful. Juno shrugged, her expression resigned. We've managed so far. What's a little more insanity on top of everything else? The ship shuddered slightly, a reminder that they were still, technically, inside a massive alien construct nestled among Saturn's rings. The view outside the porthole was breathtaking, if you ignored the imminent threat of obliteration. At least the view's nice, Arkin said, peering out. Dying with a view beats dying without one. Not planning on dying today, Talia said firmly, turning back to the console. Let's see if we can convince our new friend here to see things our way. They returned to their work, tapping into the ship's systems while the alien tech continued its gentle, almost playful probing. Looks like it's settling down, Juno observed, a hint of relief in her voice. For now, anyway. Let's hope it stays that way, Arkin replied. Because I really don't want to placate sentient technology, to my resume. Don't worry, Talia said with a slight grin. We'll make survivalists of you yet. As they continued to interact with the tech, a sense of cautious optimism began to creep in. Maybe, just maybe, they were on the right track. The intercom crackled to life once more, Grumble's voice as dour as ever. Probability of success remains uncertain. Don't sugarcoat it or anything, Arkin quipped. Juno chuckled. We're making progress. That's got to count for something. Hope it does, Talia said, her eyes still glued to the console. Because I'm not keen on the alternative. The hours dragged on, each passing moment a tiny victory in their battle against uncertainty. They worked tirelessly, navigating the treacherous waters of alien logic and human stubbornness. And when the alien tech finally responded, it was with a message that sent a chill down their spines. 3 simple words, glowing ominously on the screen. "We are watching." "Well," Arkin said, breaking the tense silence, "that's not ominous at all." "No pressure," Juno muttered, shaking her head in disbelief. Talia took a deep breath, the gravity of their situation settling heavily on her shoulders. "Let's give them something worth watching." With their hearts pounding and their fate hanging by a thread, they leaned into their task, determined to prove that humanity was more than just another pest in the vast cosmic ecosystem. Because if they didn't, they might very well become the next cautionary tale of why curiosity doesn't just kill cats, it annihilates civilizations. The immediate aftermath of the alien device's ominous proclamation left the crew in a state of quiet disbelief. "We are watching" wasn't exactly the welcome gift they'd hoped for from their new alien pen pals. A bouquet of exploding flowers, perhaps, but not this. "So," Arkin said, breaking the tense silence with his usual flair for understatement. "They're watching. Could be worse. They could be watching us through our own bathroom cameras." Juno snorted, half amused despite the growing anxiety gnawing at her insides. "As if they need to see humans at our most vulnerable. Pretty sure they'd look away in pity." Talia, working to keep from spiraling into panic, waved them quiet as she focused on the console. "Let's not test their willingness to look away. Right now, we need to focus on ensuring they see us as something other than a future autopsy." Arkin leaned back, feigning nonchalance while palms slicked with sweat betrayed his unease. "So, how do we entertain our cosmic voyeurs? Jazz hands? Interpretive dance?" "I'm thinking more along the lines of, let's not die horribly," Juno replied, a bit of an edge to her humor. The intercom buzzed to life, Grumble's voice cutting through their brainstorming with its usual dour assessment. "Incoming communication from Earth disrupted. Connection lost. Probability of isolation high." "Wonderful," Arkin muttered. "Now we really are in a horror film. Next, we'll find out the phone lines are down, and the creepy killer is in the house." "Less creepy killer, more unfathomable alien tech, but sure," Juno agreed, her gaze fixed on the screen as she tried to make sense of the alien script that continued to scroll across it. "Earth was getting on my nerves anyway." Talia shook her head, refusing to let the growing sense of dread take root. "We need to focus. With Earth out of the loop, we're on our own. Any misstep here could potentially turn the whole solar system into an all-you-can-eat buffet for this tech." Arkin cracked a grin. "Talk about making an impact. Here lies humanity, gone out with a bang, and a side salad of disastrous decisions." "Focus, Arkin," Talia insisted, although her lips twitched slightly despite the gravity of the situation. The ship gave a shuddering groan, like a mechanical beast rousing from slumber. Lights flickered, a staccato pulse that mirrored the tension among the crew. Juno, ever the mechanic, was already at work, fingers dancing over the controls as she worked to stabilize the systems. "Okay," she said, half to herself, half to her companions. "If this thing's intermingling with our systems, we need to find a way to communicate clearly. It seems to be confused about human commands." Arkin watched the console with a cynical eye. "Confused? Or just doesn't give a damn about whether it gets them right?" Juno shrugged. "I don't suppose it reads the instruction manual. If we don't get this straight, it'll be building God knows what from our misunderstandings." "Maybe we'll finally get that robot butler I always wanted," Arkin mused, though his joke fell flat against the backdrop of their increasingly grim reality. Talia's fingers flew over the keyboard. "The nanotech is trying to construct something. Can you see this?" She gestured to the screen displaying a series of geometric shapes, twisting and turning as if alive. Juno leaned over her shoulder, squinting at the display. "Looks like it's trying to build something autonomous. But hell if I know what it's basing it off. Maybe it's taking a bit too much creative liberty with our commands," Arkin suggested, tapping the side of his nose knowingly. "Probably building a giant space cat, curiosity and all that." Juno flicked a switch, trying to override some of the processes. "If we don't get control, it could replicate endlessly. We could end up with an army of whatever the hell it's building." "An army," Arkin echoed, the weight of the word settling over them like a lead blanket. "Well, that escalated quickly." "You think?" Talia replied, eyes intent on the screen. "If this technology spreads beyond Saturn, there won't be a place in the solar system it can't touch. We need to be smart about this. The lights flickered again, a reminder of how precarious their position truly was. It was as if the ship itself was breathing, each shutter a gasp for stability amid the chaos. We need to find out what commands it's taking seriously, Juno said, focusing on the practicalities. Any wrong move and we could be toast. Arkin ran a hand through his hair. And here I thought space travel was all about exploration and wonder. Turns out it's more like juggling plasma grenades while blindfolded. Glad to see your sense of optimism remains unshaken, Juno replied dryly. Arkin shrugged. Hey, I'm all about consistency. Grumble spoke up again, its voice a steady companion in their otherwise uncertain reality. Probability of the alien technology affecting broader systems, increasing. Good to know, Talia muttered, biting her lip. Because that was totally unclear before. The console beeped. An alert that drew their collective attention. A new series of symbols appeared, and Talia felt a chill run down her spine. They were communicating again. Here we go, Arkin said, rubbing his hands together. Let's hope it's not an eviction notice. Juno took a deep breath. We need to try and steer this. Make it see that what it's doing isn't sustainable. Define sustainable, Arkin quipped. Because I'm pretty sure it has a whole other definition. Probably something along the lines of consuming all matter in the vicinity, Talia replied, trying to decipher the alien script. Together, they worked to input a new series of commands, hoping to redirect the alien tech's focus. The minutes dragged on, each one a testament to their collective determination. Okay, Juno finally said. It seems to be responding. Slowly, but it's something. Just in time for our next episode of Will We Survive? Arkin said, his humor taking on a slightly manic edge. The intercom buzzed, Grumble's voice rumbling through the command center. Probability of catastrophic failure remains considerable. Juno rolled her eyes. Thanks for the pep talk, Grumble. You're as uplifting as ever. Always a pleasure, Grumble replied, with what might have been a hint of smugness, if computers could feel such things. The ship groaned again, but this time there was a subtle change. The lights steadied and the temperature stabilized. That's better, Talia said, though her voice was taut with the tension that still underpinned their efforts. Arkin crossed his arms, watching as the alien symbols began to shift, forming new patterns. Think we're finally getting through to it? Or is it just lulling us into a sense of false security before it eats us alive? Optimist, remember? Juno reminded him, though there was a glint of mischief in her eyes. As the moments passed, the alien tech's response became more coherent, its actions less erratic. It was a small victory, but one the team desperately needed. I think we're making progress, Talia said, a note of relief in her voice. If this keeps up, we might actually avert disaster. Or delay it, Arkin added. But hey, in this business, I'll take what I can get. Juno chuckled. Just remember to send Earth a postcard when we save the solar system. Wish you were here, and all that. Assuming they ever get our messages again, Arkin said, his expression turning serious. We're still cut off. If this thing decides to change its mind, we'll be right back where we started. Talia nodded, acknowledging the truth of it. One step at a time. We keep this up, and maybe we'll find a way to reconnect. But first, we need to make sure we're not about to unleash a planetary-scale catastrophe. Grumble chimed in, almost as if on cue. Probability of immediate catastrophe. Reduced. Thank you, Grumble, Juno said, her voice laced with sarcasm. Wouldn't want to miss out on that. Despite the dark humor, the crew felt a flicker of hope. If they could harness this tech, guide it, maybe they wouldn't just survive, they'd come out stronger. Well, if we manage this, we'll go down in history, Arkin said, looking around at his crewmates. And if not, we'll at least make one hell of a cautionary tale. Here's hoping for the former, Talia replied, focusing once more on the console. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. As they turned back to their task, there was a renewed sense of determination in the air. With the alien tech's response shifting, they were poised on the edge of something monumental, a chance to not only save themselves but perhaps redefine humanity's place in the cosmos. Let's give them something worth watching, Juno said, echoing Talia's earlier sentiment. Agreed, Arkin replied, his usual cynicism tempered by a glimmer of hope. And maybe, just maybe, we'll get out of this alive. Talia hunched over her console, the screen bathing her face in an unflattering blue glow. If someone had told her a week ago she'd be on a tin can barely floating through Saturn's rings, trying to negotiate with a piece of alien tech that could probably outwit a Mensa committee, she'd have laughed. Now, the irony was as thick as the space grime on the ship's hull. Okay, people, she muttered, more to herself than anyone else, we need to teach this thing to talk before it decides we're not worth the trouble and turns us into cosmic dust. Arkin glanced over, eyebrow raised. Teach it to talk? I can barely get you to listen half the time. His grin was as dry as a Martian desert. Think it'll join us for tea and biscuits? Only if by biscuits you mean our bones, Juno chimed in, not looking up from her own console where she tried to untangle the latest mess the alien tech had woven into their systems. Let's hope it's not got a taste for human toast. Grumble's voice crackled through the intercom, its dour tone a fitting soundtrack for their predicament. Probability of successful communication. Uncertain. Thanks, Grumble, Talia sighed, because I really needed another reminder of how utterly screwed we are. Despite the precarious situation, there was a strange comfort in the familiarity of the crew's banter. It was a balm for frayed nerves, a reminder that, despite the alien menace, they were still human, sarcastic, flawed, and clinging to humor like a life raft. Talia's fingers danced across the keyboard, her mind a whirlwind of calculations and possibilities. She had always been good at seeing patterns where others saw chaos. Years of deciphering nanotech had taught her to think like a machine. Now, she just needed to hope the alien tech could learn to think a little like a human. If we can identify a common language, something both our systems recognize, she mused aloud, then maybe we can start a dialogue. Right now, it's like we're shouting into the void and hoping it doesn't shout back. Sure. Because everyone knows the best way to avoid a cosmic misunderstanding is to strike up a friendly chat, Arkin quipped. Maybe we should invite it to karaoke night while we're at it. Juno snorted. I'll pass. Last time you sang, the ship's AI almost jettisoned itself. Talia ignored them, her focus on the screen where alien symbols twisted and morphed like living hieroglyphs. She was looking for something, anything, that hinted at structure, an opening move in a game of interstellar chess. There, she breathed, pointing at a sequence that flickered and held. It was a pattern, repeating and evolving with each scroll of data. That's it, it's a lexicon, or a start of one. Arkin peered over her shoulder, squinting at the screen. Looks like gibberish to me. But then again, so does algebra. It's not gibberish, Talia insisted, a spark of hope igniting. It's logic. Basic, universal logic. If we respond with something it recognizes, we might get a response. A real one. Juno raised an eyebrow. And if it doesn't like your attempt at cosmic small talk? Then we make sure the insurance covers, smited by alien intellect, Arkin offered, glancing around the ship as if checking for impending doom. Talia, if this goes south, I'll miss your cooking. Talia rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a smile. No one's dying today, not on my watch. With renewed determination, she began inputting sequences, carefully crafting a digital overture, hoping the technology would recognize the effort and reciprocate. Think of this as a first date, Talia explained, more for her own benefit than for the others. We don't want to scare it off, but we need to make sure it knows we're interested. Great, Juno muttered, because my love life wasn't already complicated enough without adding an interstellar intelligence to the mix. Talia's fingers flew, the console beeping in acknowledgement as she sent the message into the ether. The tension in the command center was palpable, a collective breath held in anticipation of a response, or the lack thereof. For a moment, nothing happened. The ship hummed quietly, the distant thunder of Saturn's rings rumbling beneath their feet. Then, as if considering its options, the alien symbols began to shift. It's responding, Arkin noted, his voice tinged with disbelief. Either that or it's writing out our obituaries. Shut up, Arkin, Talia snapped, though there was no heat in her words. Let's see what it has to say. The alien text arranged itself into a new pattern, one that Talia instinctively understood was a reply. It was cautious, probing, like a cat testing new territory. We've got a conversation, she announced, unable to keep the triumph from her voice. Now, to see if it can keep up. Juno leaned back in her chair, a grin spreading across her face. Well, what do you know? Turns out talking to the void does work. Next thing, we'll be asking it for fashion advice. Arkin shook his head, though his usual cynicism seemed momentarily subdued. This better not end with us in matching tinfoil hats. Talia continued the exchange, carefully interpreting the aliens' responses and crafting replies that advanced the dialogue. Each successful interaction fueled a cautious optimism, though the specter of potential devastation still loomed large. Okay, Talia said, after what felt like an eternity. We're establishing a protocol. It's listening, or at least pretending to. Great, Arkin replied. Now we just have to convince it not to redecorate the ship with our entrails. That's the spirit, Juno added, her fingers tapping on her own console, ensuring the communication remained stable. Nothing like a bit of existential dread to spice up the day. Grumble, perhaps feeling left out of the party, interjected. Probability of miscommunication, significant. Noted, Grumble, Talia replied, rolling her eyes. But we're making progress. For once, let's look on the bright side. Easy for you to say, Arkin muttered. You're not the one worrying about what kind of impression we're making. What if it decides we're not worth the effort? Talia shrugged, a wry smile playing on her lips. Then I guess we just proved humanity's not cut out for intergalactic diplomacy. Ah, well, Juno said, leaning back in her chair. I'm sure the cockroaches will take over just fine. Despite the snark, there was a shared sense of accomplishment. They had managed to communicate with a technology that could have easily erased them from existence. It was a small victory, but in a universe filled with indifferent stars, even small victories mattered. All right, Talia said, her tone shifting from playful to business. Let's see if we can convince this thing to stand down. If we can establish a ceasefire, maybe we can work this out. Here's hoping it's in a generous mood, Arkin added, watching the screen as though expecting it to explode at any moment. Talia crafted another message, this one aimed at introducing the concept of peace, or at least a temporary truce. It was a gamble, but then, everything about this mission was a gamble. The alien text shifted again, slowly, almost ponderously, as if weighing the merits of the offer. It was a tense few moments, during which Juno tapped a nervous beat on her console and Arkin chewed on the end of a pen he'd found lodged between the buttons. Finally, the response came. A series of symbols that Talia recognized as a hesitant agreement. We've got it, she breathed, a sense of relief washing over her. A truce, at least for now. The room erupted in a mix of tired cheers and relieved laughter. Even Grumble, in its own way, seemed to join in. Probability of immediate catastrophe. Minimized. See? Juno said, a wide grin on her face. Sometimes all you need is a little human charm. Or a lot of blind luck, Arkin countered, though his smile belied his words. Talia sat back, exhaustion tugging at her every muscle. They had stopped the immediate threat, but the larger problem remained. Communicating was only the beginning. They needed to understand, to integrate, to ensure this alliance held. What's next? Arkin asked, as the cheers died down and reality crept back in. Next, we figure out what this thing wants, Talia replied, her mind already turning back to the task ahead. We need to understand its purpose, its goals. Only then can we make sure it doesn't decide to sample the solar system's buffet again. No pressure, Juno said with a mock salute. Just invent interspecies diplomacy while avoiding planetary annihilation. Sounds like a Tuesday, Arkin muttered, leaning back in his chair. Despite the sarcasm, there was a camaraderie in their shared ordeal, a sense of purpose in the chaos. They weren't just surviving. They were facing the unknown, crafting a future one tentative step at a time. As Talia worked on the next phase of their plan, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of pride in what they'd achieved. They'd taken the first step, not just for themselves, but for humanity. It might not be a perfect solution, but it was a start. And sometimes, in the vast, uncaring universe, a start was all you needed. So, Arkin said, breaking the silence that had settled over the command center, what do you think the historians will say about this? Talia thought for a moment, then grinned. Probably something like, they were a bunch of lunatics who tried to chat up an alien supercomputer. Juno laughed. Not wrong. Better a lunatic than a corpse, Arkin added, leaning back with a contented sigh. And hey, if we pull this off, we might even get a statue. As long as it's not made by the alien tech, Talia replied, turning back to her console with renewed determination. Let's make sure we're still around to see it. And with that, the crew returned to their work, a team of misfits determined to make their mark on the universe, one sarcastic comment at a time. Talia Voss squinted at the console, rubbing her eyes as if trying to wipe away the fatigue that clung to her like a stubborn shadow. The alien symbols danced across the screen, mocking her with their cryptic elegance. She had a tenuous grasp on their meaning now, like holding onto a slippery fish, and she intended not to let it wriggle free. "All right, team," Talia announced, her voice carrying the kind of faux confidence you'd expect from someone about to juggle chainsaws. "We're going to stabilize this temple and stop it from turning us into space dust." "About time," Arkin Strand chimed in, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I was starting to enjoy the prospect of becoming stardust." Juno Kale, fiddling with the ship's wiring like a kid with a new toy, looked up. "Guess it's another day of preventing cosmic calamity. Who knew saving humanity could be so repetitive? Less talk, more saving the universe," Talia shot back, though a smirk tugged at her lips. "We've got this far. Now, we just need to keep this thing from eating us and our solar system for dessert." With a renewed sense of purpose, or maybe just a heightened sense of impending doom, Talia continued her delicate dance with the alien tech. The console beeped a familiar tone, as if offering a polite nod of acknowledgement. "Grumble, status report," she called out, fingers flying over the keys. "Probability of catastrophic failure, fluctuating. Potential for stabilization, rising," Grumble's monotone voice crackled through the intercom. "Is it just me, or is Grumble getting optimistic?" Arkin asked, raising an eyebrow. "I liked it better when it was doom and gloom. More honest. Must be picking up some of our charm," Juno replied, a devilish grin spreading across her face. "Or maybe it's just sick of us and hoping we finally get things right." Talia's attention was back on the console, where alien symbols rearranged themselves like a Rubik's Cube in a cosmic game of chess. She needed to understand, to manipulate, to control, before they all became unfortunate entries in an alien database of failed communications. "Okay, I think I can stabilize the temple's power source," Talia said, her voice a little steadier. "If I can just link our ship's systems with the alien tech, we might be able to leverage its energy to prevent a meltdown." "Leveraging alien tech sounds like a bad idea wrapped in an even worse plan," Arkin remarked, though his eyes betrayed the flicker of excitement that comes with high-stakes gambles. "But hey, I'm not the one who has to explain it to HQ if it all goes to hell." Juno adjusted her seat, leaning forward as she tapped away at her console. "I'll rig the ship's mainframe to handle the power influx. If it works, we might just have enough juice to keep us from becoming cosmic debris." "Excellent," Talia said, feeling the surge of adrenaline that comes with flirting with catastrophe. "Let's not dwell on the failure bit. I hear the afterlife has terrible Wi-Fi." With Juno's expertise and Talia's calculations, they managed to interface their ship's systems with the alien tech. It was like trying to plug a toaster into a supercomputer, but against all odds, the circuits hummed in harmony. "Grumble, monitor the power flow," Talia instructed, watching as the ship's systems absorbed the alien energy like a sponge. "Monitoring active. Warning. Contingency plans advised." "Ain't that comforting," Arkin said, running a hand through his hair with a weary chuckle. "Good to know we're just one step away from becoming toast." The ship thrummed with newfound power, a gentle vibration that seemed to resonate through their bones. Outside, the swirling rings of Saturn glimmered like a cosmic kaleidoscope, a reminder of the thin line between awe and annihilation. "Now for the fun part," Talia said, her voice laced with a mix of determination and resignation. "Let's see if we can harness this power for something more than just not dying." "Like what?" Juno asked, her eyes flicking between her console and the alien symbols that continued their enigmatic dance. "A supernova light show? More like sustainable solutions for Earth," Talia replied, her focus unwavering. "If we can channel this energy back home, we might just solve a few of our little planet's problems. Assuming we don't blow it up first." "Ah, the classic, save the world or destroy it, scenario," Arkin said, a wry smile playing across his lips. "I'm starting to think we're the universe's favorite sitcom." Talia and her team worked tirelessly, their movements a symphony of controlled chaos. They recalibrated systems, rerouted energy, and theorized on the fly, all while keeping a wary eye on the alien tech, like chefs crafting a delicate soufflé with explosive ingredients. The symbols on Talia's screen began to shift again, this time forming a pattern she recognized as an acknowledgement, a tentative handshake between species. It was a start, but far from a guarantee. "We're in," she announced, her voice tinged with relief. "We've established a stable connection. Now we can start redirecting the power safely." Or unsafely, Arkin added, never one to pass up an opportunity for gallows humor. "Let's just hope the world appreciates our convoluted attempts at heroics." With the connection stabilized, Talia and Juno set to work on creating a channel to funnel energy back to Earth. It was a delicate process, like threading a needle with a thread made of live wires. "Juno, how's it looking?" Talia asked, glancing over at the engineer who was immersed in her work, her fingers a blur on the console. Like a drunk octopus trying to play the violin, Juno replied without missing a beat. "But I think we've got it. We should be able to send the energy back to Earth in controlled bursts." "Excellent," Talia said, feeling a cautious optimism creeping in. "Arkin, get ready to broadcast the good news back home." "Assuming we can get a signal through the intergalactic noise," Arkin replied, already preparing the message. "Do you think HQ will send us a thank you card?" "More like a bill for all the coffee we're going to need after this," Juno quipped. With the energy channel established, the ship's systems hummed with a newfound stability. It was a precarious balance, like a cat walking a tightrope, but it was holding. "For now, Grumble, update Earth on our progress," Talia instructed, a sense of accomplishment tinging her voice. "Tell them we've harnessed the alien power and it's being redirected safely." Transmission initiated. Connection stable. The crew watched as the message was sent, a lifeline thrown across the cosmos to a planet in need. It was a moment of triumph, a small victory in a universe that rarely handed them out for free. "Now we wait," Arkin said, leaning back with a contented sigh. "Let's hope they're as excited about this as we are. Or at least not disappointed," Juno added, stretching her arms above her head. "God knows we've had enough disappointment for one day." As the ship settled into its new rhythm, Talia allowed herself a moment to breathe. They'd done it. They'd communicated with an alien intelligence, stabilized a potential catastrophe, and found a way to help Earth. It was more than she'd dared hope for. "So, what's next?" Juno asked, the question lingering in the air like smoke. "I guess we keep an eye on the alien tech," Talia replied, her gaze never leaving the screen. "Make sure it doesn't decide to go rogue on us. And maybe figure out what it wants in return." "Great," Arkin said, his voice laced with mock enthusiasm. "More alien babysitting. Just what I signed up for." "Hey, could be worse," Juno said with a shrug. "We could have been vaporized." "There's that silver lining," Arkin replied, rolling his eyes. "Always nice to have our priorities straight." Despite the challenges that still lay ahead, there was a sense of camaraderie among the crew. A shared understanding that they were in this together, for better or worse. They were a team, and they'd just pulled off the impossible. "Well," Talia said, a smile tugging at her lips, "if nothing else, we've got one hell of a story to tell." "Assuming anyone's left to hear it," Arkin added with a chuckle. "Always the optimist," Juno teased, nudging him playfully. "But hey, if we can handle alien tech, I'm pretty sure we can handle anything." With the immediate crisis averted, the crew settled into a more relaxed pace, though their eyes remained vigilant. They'd survived against the odds, but the universe had a way of keeping them on their toes. As Talia watched the alien symbols continue their cryptic dance, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. They'd taken a leap into the unknown and landed on their feet, proving that humanity was more than capable of facing the challenges of the cosmos. "So," Arkin said, glancing around at his compañeros, "who's up for a round of celebratory drinks when we're back on Earth?" "Only if you promise not to sing," Juno replied, earning a round of laughter from the crew. "Deal," Arkin said with a grin. "Though I make no promises if we find an alien karaoke machine on board." Talia shook her head, a genuine smile spreading across her face. Despite the danger, the uncertainty, and the sheer insanity of their mission, they'd managed to pull through. They'd faced the unknown and come out stronger for it. "All right, team," she said, her voice carrying the weight of the moment. "Let's make sure we stick around long enough to enjoy those drinks." And with that, they returned to their work, a motley crew determined to carve out a place for humanity among the stars, one sarcastic comment at a time. They'd faced the abyss and lived to tell the tale, and now, They were ready for whatever else the universe might throw their way. Talia Voss stood in the command center, her eyes darting between the holographic display of Earth and the alien symbols that still danced on her console. The ship was a chaotic mess of wires, lights, and the occasional disgruntled crew member. It was a miracle they hadn't all been vaporized or turned into something resembling a cosmic catastrophe. "So, how's the alliance with the nanotech going, boss?" Arkin asked, lounging in his chair like he was on a beach vacation, not on a barely floating tin can in the rings of Saturn. "Do we get a shiny medal or just a pat on the back for not blowing up?" "More like a, thank you for not making space soup out of humanity, card," Talia replied dryly, her fingers dancing over her console as she adjusted a few settings. "We'll be presenting the details to Earth soon. Assuming they still want to hear from us after all this. Yeah, nothing spells goodwill like accidentally hijacking their intergalactic reception," Juno chimed in, her fingers tapping away at her console with the speed and precision of a caffeine-fueled squirrel. "But hey, at least we're not dead. That's a win in my book." "True," Arkin agreed, raising an imaginary glass to not being space dust. Talia couldn't help but chuckle at her team's irreverence. It was one of the things she loved about them. Even when the universe seemed hell-bent on tearing them apart, they found a way to make light of it. "All right, let's get down to business," Talia said, her tone shifting to one of command as she focused on the task at hand. "We've got an opportunity here to show Earth what we've discovered and how we can use it to our advantage. The nanotech could revolutionize everything: energy, medicine, hell, maybe even make reality TV worth watching." "Now that's science fiction," Arkin quipped, earning a smirk from Juno. "Don't get your hopes up," Juno said, her focus never wavering from the lines of code streaming across her screen. "I think even alien tech has its limits," Talia continued, her voice filled with a mix of determination and cautious optimism. "We've managed to harness the power from the alien tech and stabilize the temple. If we can implement this nanotech on Earth, it's going to change everything. Energy crises? Poof. Environmental decay? See ya. The list goes on. We just need to make sure the suits back home get on board." "Right," Arkin nodded, spinning his chair around lazily. "Because convincing bureaucrats is always a walk in the park. I'm sure they'll jump at the chance to replace their antiquated systems with stuff they can't even pronounce. Hey, if we can make it sound like it'll save them money, I'm sure they'll listen," Juno said with a knowing grin. "Just throw in a couple of buzzwords like sustainable and cutting edge, and they'll eat it up." "True," Talia agreed, "but let's keep it simple. We're showing them that we're not just out here screwing around. We've got something real, something that can make a difference. Assuming we can keep the aliens happy," Arkin said, ever the pessimist. "Last thing we need is a pissed-off space overlord showing up to collect a bill we can't pay." "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," Talia replied, pushing back the lingering fear that gnawed at the edges of her mind. "For now, let's focus on the positives. We did it. We made contact, stabilized the situation, and found a way to benefit from it. Feels weird being the good guys for once," Arkin mused, stretching his arms. "I mean, there's no guarantee we won't screw up later, but for now, it's nice." "Enjoy it while it lasts," Juno said, a hint of mischief in her voice. "Because when we get back, it's back to the grind. I hear the paperwork is killer." With their mission nearing its conclusion, the crew prepared to share their findings with Earth. Talia had crafted a presentation that would make even the most jaded bureaucrat sit up and take notice. The holographic display flickered to life, showcasing a montage of their journey, from the initial contact with the alien tech to the triumphant stabilization of the temple. "This is it," Talia said, her voice a mixture of pride and relief. "Let's show them what we've accomplished." As they prepared to broadcast their findings, the ship's intercom crackled to life with Grumble's monotone voice. "Incoming transmission from Earth. Connection stable. See, told ya they'd want to hear from us," Juno said, flashing a triumphant smile. "Who can resist a little alien intrigue? Or the threat of imminent destruction," Arkin added. "That usually gets people's attention." The screen blinked to life, revealing a collection of stern faces, officials from Earth, representatives of various countries, and a few scientists who looked like they hadn't seen sunlight in years. They were all waiting to hear from Talia and her team, eager to understand what they'd discovered and what it meant for humanity. Talia took a deep breath, steadying herself. Good day, everyone. We've got some exciting updates to share with you about our mission and the potential implications for Earth. The officials leaned in, their eyes fixed on Talia as she outlined their findings. She explained the alien tech's capabilities, the power they'd managed to harness, and the potential applications for it back on Earth. As she spoke, the tension in the room seemed to ease, replaced by a growing sense of wonder and curiosity. We believe this technology could revolutionize our energy systems, Talia continued, her passion evident in every word. It has the potential to provide clean, sustainable energy on a scale we've never seen before. And that's just the beginning. The scientists exchanged excited glances, whispering among themselves as they processed the information. The officials, meanwhile, appeared more contemplative, considering the ramifications of such a discovery. Of course, we need to proceed cautiously, Talia added, tempering her enthusiasm with a dose of realism. This isn't a magic bullet. We'll need to work together to ensure this technology is implemented safely and responsibly. Arkin leaned over to Juno, whispering with a grin, translation: "Don't let the politicians screw it up." Juno stifled a laugh, nodding in agreement. "Good luck with that." "Thank you, Dr. Voss," one of the officials said, his voice a mixture of awe and gratitude. "This is an incredible breakthrough. We look forward to working with you to explore its potential." "Glad to hear it," Talia replied, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. "We're eager to collaborate and make sure this technology benefits everyone." As the transmission ended, the crew shared a collective sigh of relief. They'd done it. They'd not only survived their ordeal but also uncovered something that could change the future of humanity. "Well, that went better than expected," Juno said, stretching her arms above her head. "I was half expecting them to ask if we could bring back a souvenir." "Yeah, like a postcard from the alien temple," Arkin joked. "Wish you were here. Please don't touch anything." The crew laughed, their spirits lifted by the knowledge that they'd accomplished something truly remarkable. They'd faced the unknown and emerged victorious, proving that humanity had a place among the stars. "So, what's next?" Juno asked, her voice tinged with excitement. "Do we get a statue or something back home?" "Probably just a pat on the back and a mountain of paperwork," Arkin replied, ever the realist. Talia smiled, feeling a sense of pride and camaraderie with her team. They'd come a long way, and though the future was uncertain, they were ready to face it together. "Whatever happens next," Talia said, her voice filled with determination, "we'll be ready. We've proven that we can adapt, learn, and thrive in the face of adversity. And I have no doubt we'll continue to do so." "To the future," Juno said, raising a hand in a mock toast. "To not dying horribly in space," Arkin added with a grin. With the immediate crisis behind them, the crew settled into a more relaxed pace, content to enjoy the moment and savor their victory. The universe was still a vast, mysterious place, full of challenges and opportunities, but for now, they could take a breath and appreciate what they'd achieved. As the ship continued its journey home, Talia allowed herself a moment of reflection. They'd made contact with an alien intelligence, harnessed its power, and found a way to help Earth. It was more than she'd ever hoped for when they set out on this mission. And though the road ahead was uncertain, Talia knew they were ready for whatever came next. They'd faced the abyss and lived to tell the tale, and now, they were ready to carve out a place for humanity among the stars. "All right, team," Talia said, her voice carrying the weight of the moment. "Let's get back to work. We've got a bright future to build." And with that, they returned to their tasks, a motley crew determined to make a difference, one sarcastic comment at a time. They'd faced the unknown and come out stronger for it, ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead.